Hey everyone. So today our topic is transporting humans. I couldn't upload for a few days due to some health issues. So let's continue. So in the chapter transporting humans, the first thing that comes to our mind is the human circulatory system. The human circulatory system distributes oxygenated blood throughout the body. In humans, this is achieved by double circulation. The two parts of the double circulation are pulmonary and systemic circulation. So, the pulmonary circulation is the circulation in which deoxygenated blood leaves the right side of the heart and passes through the pulmonary arteries to the lungs. In the lungs, the blood is oxygenated before returning through the pulmonary veins to the left side of the heart. So, this is the pulmonary circulation in which deoxygenated blood reaches the lungs to get oxygenated and returns to the heart. So, basically, in pulmonary circulation, the movement of blood is from the heart to the lungs and then back to the heart. In systemic circulation, oxygenated blood leaves the left side of the heart and passes through the aorta to all other parts of the body. It unloads its oxygen and deoxygenated blood before returning through veins to the right side of the heart. So, in the systemic circulation, oxygenated blood leaves the right side of the heart to all parts of the body. This is a basic idea that the blood leaves the heart and moves to other parts of the body to provide oxygen to those parts of the body. So let's move on to types of blood vessels. There are three main type of blood vessels, which are arteries, veins, and capillaries. As you can see here, the red blood vessel is the artery, the blue blood vessel is the vein, and then thin blood vessels are the capillaries. So let's continue. So what basically is an artery? The artery is a blood vessel which carries blood away from the heart to all other parts of the body. So as you can see here, this is an artery. The artery has a thick outer layer and collagen of fibers. So this is one property of artery. The second property of artery is that it has a narrow central lumen and the inner layer of muscle and elastic. These are the three main properties of the artery. Now, what is the reason for these properties? It is because the blood pressure in the artery is at a high level. It is because the blood is directly being transported pumped from the heart, to which the blood pressure of the artery, the blood in the artery is high. So to cope up with that blood pressure, the arteries have adapted to these properties. The muscle and elastic in the walls of the artery helps the artery to contract and relax for to control the blood pressure. The central lumen allows the blood pressure to be in a steady mood, as it provides a thin pathway for the blood to flow, which reduces the blood pressure and increases the surface area, due to which the resistance increases and the speed of the blood pressure gets low. So let's move on to the next blood vessel. The next blood vessel we have is the vein. The vein, as you can see here, the vein carries blood away from all other organs back to the heart. So the veins carry blood back to the heart. The reduction in blood pressure in the arterioles and capillaries means that blood in veins is at a very low blood pressure. This means that the walls of veins do not need the thick layer of muscle and elastic tissue present in arteries. So veins have thin walls with elastic tissue. Veins also contain walls at intervals along the length which prevent the backflow of blood. So the main properties of the vein is that it has a thinner layer of muscle and elastic, and it has a wide central lumen which provides less resistance to the blood, as the blood is already at a very low pressure. The third and the main property of the vein is that it contains valves. The valves does not allow the backflow of the blood to be held inside the vein. As the blood pressure is at very low pressure, so there is a high chance of blood flowing back into the veins. That chance is uh, terminated by the presence of valves inside the vein. The third and the most important blood vessel is the capillary. The capillary is a blood vessels which is a type of junction where veins and arteries join each other. So the capillary carries the blood through all organs of the body and link arteries with veins. Capillary carry the blood through organs. Capillaries are very narrow blood vessels with an internal diameter that is not much wider than that of the blood cells, so that they can penetrate between the cells of an organ. The walls of capillaries are made of a single layer of thin flattened cells, similar to those lining in the internal walls of the arteries and veins. These thin walls allow materials to be exchanged between the blood and the capillaries and the tissue they supply. So this is capillary. It allows exchange of materials uh, inside the human body. Let's move on to that. So this is the blood vessels to and from the main organs of the human body. You can see over here that there is a blood vessel going to the head and the arms. The red blood vessel going to the head and the arms is the artery, and the blue blood vessel coming back is the vein. You can see a red blood vessel entering the lungs. That is the pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein. The blue blood vessel entering the lungs is the pulmonary artery. In this case, the roles of the artery and vein is reversed, as here vein artery is carrying deoxygenated blood and the vein is carrying oxygenated blood. This is because the deoxygenated blood is being carried through the artery from the heart to the lungs, and the oxygenated blood is being carried back to the heart through the vein. So the pulmonary artery carries blood, deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood back from the lungs to the heart. Then through the aorta, the blood is being pumped to the whole body, but through the vena cava, the blood from the whole body returns to the heart. So through the hepatic artery, the blood reaches the liver, and through hepatic vein, the blood leaves the liver. In the stomach and intestine, the hepatic portal vein sends the deoxygenated blood to the liver. The kidneys receive the blood from the renal artery, and the blood leaves the kidneys to the renal vein. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is the structure of the heart, as you can see. So the heart has a bulk of muscles, as you know. So the heart has four chambers. The two upper chambers are called the atria, and the two lower chambers, which are the larger chambers, are called the ventricles. The right side of the heart has a right atrium and right ventricle, and the left side of the heart has a left atrium and a left ventricle. So heart first receives deoxygenated blood in the right atrium, which is then transported to the right ventricle, through which the blood is pumped out, and the oxygenated blood is received by the left ventricle atrium, and it moves to the left ventricle, through which it is pumped out of the heart. So there are some veins present on the surface of the heart, which are known as the coronary arteries. These coronary arteries supply heart is also an organ, so it also needs blood or oxygen to survive, or to work through, or to respire. So heart also needs oxygen. So that oxygen is being supplied in the form of blood to the heart by the coronary arteries. The atrioventricular walls present in the heart, atrioventricular and bicuspid, tricuspid, these are the walls present in the heart. These walls prevent the backflow of the blood and maintain a one-way flow in the heart. So semilunar valve, bicuspid valve, also known as mitral valve, the tricuspid valves, these are present in the heart. The, uh, the left ventricle is a stronger and more muscular ventricle, as the blood is being directly pumped from the left ventricle to the whole body. So that part of the heart should be in a good form and a good condition, and should be strong enough to pump the blood to the whole body. So this is the heart cycle. So first of all, let's start. So this is a very important topic in this chapter, as the examiner often asks question from the heart cycle. So how does a beat in the heart cycle complete? So as you know that your heart beats 70 to 72 times, 70 or 72 times per minute of a healthy human being. So that one beat, when does it complete? So when the atrias contract, first the right atrium contract, then right ventricle contracts, then left atrium contracts. After the left ventricle has contracted, one beat of the heart has completed. So, at the start of the heart cycle, the right atrium receives deoxygenated blood and contracts to send it to the right ventricle. So, both the atrium and ventricles are relaxed. Deoxygenated blood from the body enters the right atrium to the vena cava. Oxygenated blood from the lungs enters the left atrium to the pulmonary veins. Blood passes through the atrioventricular valves into the ventricles. The atria contract, blood is pushed through the atrioventricular valves into the ventricles. After a few tenths of a second, the ventricles start to contract. The increase in pressure in the ventricles close the atrioventricular valves, preventing backflow of blood into the atria. Where the pressure in the left ventricle becomes higher than the pressure in the aorta, and the pressure in the right ventricle exceeds that in the pulmonary artery, the semilunar valves open. Oxygenated blood flows through the aorta to the body, and deoxygenated blood flows through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. While the ventricles contract, the atria relax. So this was the heart cycle. As you know, we can this again and again repeats thousands, hundreds of thousands of times to a day. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is the passage of dissolved substances from the blood to the cells. So the capillaries are surrounded by a fluid called the tissue fluid. Substances first diffuse into the tissue fluid and then into the muscles, and from the tissue fluid they diffuse back into the cells. So tissue fluid basically works as the transport, which has the transport of substances from the cells to the muscles. So let's go to the composition of blood. So the blood has four main constituents, as you can see here, but we'll study only three, I guess, or four. We'll see. I guess we'll study three of them or four of them. Yes, we'll study all four. So the four constituents of blood are the plasma, white blood cells, red blood cells, and the platelets. First of all, we have plasma over here. So plasma is a yellow watery liquid which transports red blood cells around the body and contains numerous dissolved substances. So plasma is a pale yellow watery liquid. It transports the blood cells around the body and contains a number of dissolved substances, which includes nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, ions, and vitamins. They also produce antibodies against pathogens or other foreign cells, as they contain fibrinogen, which is involved in blood clotting. Plasma basically contains all the substances present inside the blood, be it platelets, red blood cells, or white blood cells. They are all suspended inside the plasma. So our next constituent of the blood is the red blood cells. We have discussed red blood cells in detail in the first chapter of cells, in the specialized cells, so you can go there and check. So the red blood cells contains hemoglobin, which transport oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body. So there's been a spelling mistake right here. Please ignore. So red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. They are highly specialized cells made in the bone marrow. They have a limited lifespan of about 100 days, and then broken down by spleen, so they need to be constantly replaced. The red blood cells contain the red pigment called hemoglobin, which combines readily with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. The lack of a nucleus means that more hemoglobin can be packed into each cell. So the hemoglobin and oxygen makes up the oxyhemoglobin inside the red blood cells, uh, which is broken down when red blood cells come near to the tissues and muscles. So the next constituent of the blood is the platelets. So platelets contain fibrinogen, which releases chemicals in blood clotting. So platelets are not cells as such, but fragments of cells formed from large cells in the bone marrow. If your skin is cut, exposure to the air stimulates the platelets to produce an enzyme in the blood. This enzyme causes the soluble plasma protein fibrinogen to form insoluble fibers of protein called fibrin. Fibrin forms a network of fibers across a wound in which other blood cells become trapped. This is a clot which prevents loss of blood and it stops the entry of pathogens. The clot later forms a scab which protects a wound while new skin grows. So a last constituent of blood is the white blood cells. The white blood cells protect the body against disease-causing organisms by the process of phagocytosis and production of antibodies. There are two types of white blood cells in the human body, which are the lymphocytes and phagocytes. The process by which phagocytes work is known as phagocytosis and the production of antibodies. So the phagocytosis is the process in which the phagocytes are released by the white blood cells. The phagocytes detect the bacteria inside the human body through the antigen on their surfaces. When the bacteria or the unwanted pathogen is detected by the phagocyte, they clump the phagocyte together, they clump the bacteria together and leave them for the lymphocyte to engulf them. So once the phagocyte has clumped the bacteria together, the white blood cells produce lymphocytes, which produce the antibodies to act on the bacteria or the pathogen. Once the antibodies are produced, they directly target to the pathogen and destroy the pathogen by engulfing it or through digesting it. So the last thing we need to study in the chapter is the coronary heart disease. The coronary arteries are a narrow blood vessels which supply heart with blood. These vessels can get blocked by fatty deposits known as atheroma. These reduces oxygen supply to the heart and results in the coronary heart disease. Person feels a pain in the chest known as anginal pain. Atheroma hardens the wall of the artery. This is also called as atherosclerosis. This could further go and result in a heart attack. So once the fatty deposits are present inside the coronary arteries, they are hardened up. The person feels an anginal pain and a pain in the heart, which is known as anginal pain. That anginal pain can lead to a symptom known as atherosclerosis, which is in which the fatty deposit harden up inside the coronary artery, due to which the oxygen supply to the heart is cut off. After which, as the heart would not receive any oxygen, so the heart would not respire, and after some time, the heart eventually will die and will not perform its function properly, due to which it will lead to heart attack or a cardiac arrest. But a person may die in this case. So that would be all for today. We'll meet you in the in the next lecture, which will be on the transport in plants. Thank you.